Alright, motherfuckers, my name is Wolfgang Carstens, and this is the Astro 2000 reading series. Today I'm holding a copy of A Bellyful of Anarchy by Mr. Rob Plath. For any of those not paying attention, this was the first book released by Epic Rights Press in 2009, and I'd love to read a few poems for you. Wave them back to the womb. As long as there is birth, there will be bombs. As long as there are umbilicals, there will be the devil's whip. As long as there is death, there will be more death. Heaps of death on top of death. Death, fucking death, squeezing out more death. Maybe the morgues and maternity wards should not only be on the same floor, but operate within the same four walls. Let the newborns, in their hot coats of blood, scream into the frozen mute morgue drawers until the dead sit up and wave them back into the womb. Poor. Poor wasn't calloused hands, hand-washed clothes. Poor was words sticking to our tongues like hairs. Poor wasn't tightening our belts. Poor was a strap. Poor wasn't no monkey money, no donut money, no gasoline money. Poor was hugs harder to scrape up than extra bucks. Poor wasn't late rent, no rent, collectors. Poor was separate meals, every man for himself. Poor was cunt, whore, motherfucker, bastard, cocksucker. Poor wasn't a broken palm. Poor was no hand at all. Poor was a fist. Poor wasn't going without a radio. Poor wasn't holes in shoes, holes in sheetrock. Poor wasn't leaky shingles, bad tires. Poor was no song, no dance. Poor was no laughter. Poor wasn't lost job, minimum wage, bills up the ass. Poor wasn't downsizing, factory closing, 2 part-time jobs, high blood pressure, heart attack. Poor was no lovemaking through the walls. Poor wasn't food stamps. Poor was no pride. Poor wasn't nervous breakdown, shock treatment locked up in Valhalla. Poor wasn't loaves of bread from the church. Poor was flipping the dinner table over. Poor was kicked out of the house. Poor wasn't no inspection sticker, no brakes, no spare. Poor wasn't no vacations. Poor was no words for a year. Poor was never coming up from Virginia, never coming down from Westchester. Poor was alone in one's own skin. Poor was coke, alcohol, horses, failure, fuck up, bum, no good. Poor was complete silence, a face hiding in newspapers, racetracks. Poor was crying in a dark room. Poor was a knife at throat, a fight at a funeral. Poor was knuckles through windows, doors. Poor was another woman, a hard smack on a cheek already bloody. Poor was not one kiss ever. Poor was only touching shoulders coming and going. Poor was never reading your son's poems. Great poems are like 911 calls. Great poems are like 911 calls, screaming and pared down and urgent, pretension beaten out of them by crushing circumstances. Not a literary game, but the real motherfucking deal. Would you use rhyme and meter when you dialed 911 for help? Then why do it in poetry? You don't have as much time as you think. Playing Simon Says with death. One day you'll play a game of Simon Says with death. Death will be a bully, of course, and be Simon. Death will begin with easy demands. Simon says breathe in and out. Simon says walk across the floor. But you'll gain speed, and you'll finally get confused, and fuck up, and then you'll step out of that strange suit of skin, and you'll let go of your organs like you let a sack of apples and oranges fall to the floor and roll in many directions, and you'll stand with the other losers, a crowd of shapes stripped down to the bones. But no worries, nobody ever wins. And finally, loitering in my own place. I step outside to smoke, and I get this feeling like I'm loitering on my own property. As the pines shake their thick brushes at me, the wisps go up into the sky like gray mute tongues. And whether we accomplish something or nothing, this planet will forget our names. A Bellyful of Anarchy by Mr. Rob Plath. Check it out at treekillerinc.com. Get yours today, motherfuckers.